I'm Donna, and I consider myself to be spiritual but not religious.
I'm Gene. I consider myself Jewish.
So, what brought the two of you to the church lab?
I'll start because I guess I initiated coming to the church lab and brought him with me. Um, I had heard the different topics that were being addressed at the church lab through my son and decided they sounded really interesting. So I asked him if I could sit in on a couple of sessions. And really, after just one session, I was hooked. It was interesting and helpful.
And as Donna said, basically, I was brought in by her. Uh, I don't remember the specific topic for the week that I was brought in, because at the time I was working and I had a lot of meetings. But there was one I was able to make, and it was very informative, very interesting
Hmm.
to listen to, and then ultimately to be participating in ever since I retired.
That's great. And in the spirit of full disclosure, whoa, and my light just got really bright. I am so sorry. That was startling. In the spirit of full disclosure, I am the aforementioned child, so we don't have to have the awkward song and dance on that one. Um, so I sort of helped bring the two of you to the church lab, but what keeps you coming back? What? Why? I mean, you've been here, you've done a bunch. What's still there? What are you still getting from it?
What I had hoped originally I would get from it was intellectual stimulation. I have been retired for a little while, and TV and even some of the books that I read can be a little mind numbing. So I was looking for something that was a little deeper, a little more challenging. I found that. I
Hmm.
also found, though, that aside from just being intellectually stimulating, the comments and the insights that I hear from the other members have led me to do a lot of soul searching and working on my own spiritual ideas.
I find my lack of understanding and perhaps even knowledge of other religions and other ways that those religions view the same issues uh, was extremely interesting. Uh,
Hmm.
and the more I participate with dialogue, the better appreciation I get for how we all sort of start at the same place, plan on ending at about the same place, but we take many different routes to get there. Um, and whether I now church lab discussions aren't all about religion, and so that's true both for the religious aspect of it as well as the personal or social aspects of it. How we all wind up in a group discussing very interesting topics and come at it from a multivariate direction, but all in a very pleasant and cooperative um, manner.
Yeah. Can you say a little bit more about that cooperative manner, Dad?
We don't yell at each other. We listen to each other. Seriously, we
Yeah,
listen to
Yeah.
each other.
yeah.
We sometimes debate. We sometimes disagree, um, but we don't really argue. We don't really fight. We don't belittle each other. We don't say you're wrong. We just say I see it from a different perspective, and here's how I view it. Um, and it's interesting because some of the people that I would have thought would have taken a specific position on a topic surprised me when I'm listening to them talk and made me think or rethink my position on the topic and how I approached it.
That's great. Thank you. the uh, so I think I already know the answer to this question. I have sort of a rethinking of it, but I'll ask the original question and we can go from there. Other than dialogues, have either of you been involved in other parts of the church lab?
I don't
Yeah,
know. I mean, we happily support them financially, but I don't think we've been
sure.
involved in any of the programs.
Yeah. And the reason for that, I think, is actually something that I thought I would touch on. Um, None of us are actually in or from Texas, which is where the church lab is more typically located. So, can the two of you, for a moment at least, talk about the hybridity of our dialogues? Since we're recording in 2020 and during the pandemic, all of us have been online. But prior to this time frame, there was a mix of people who were in Texas, seated together face to face, and some of us who were coming in through the internet. How does that, if you think back to that time, how did it feel? How was it getting engaged in something over such a geographic distance?
I didn't have any problem at all feeling welcomed and feeling connected, even through the technology. Where I
Mm,
did step back, what related to the question of have we been involved with anything else but the dialogues. There were times when we were invited to join into an event that centered around sharing food
mm,
or a musical event or something where people were going to be casually sitting in a bigger environment. And those just didn't seem to me to lend my to zooming in. You know, everybody else is eating. What am I going to do? You know,
Right.
so uh, so I sort of just held back from them, not because I was antisocial or uninterested, but just because the format didn't seem to lend itself to joining.
mhm,
But I have never felt awkward or uncomfortable with the long distance connection with a room full of people that I didn't even know. It was just Carrie's manner is so inviting and so inclusive that I never had any problem with it at all.
mhm.
Nor
Add
do
anything to add? Yeah.
I do. The only element of awkwardness that I had originally, which we all probably have now, is when you're not sitting in a room where it's happening, it's tough to pick up those nonverbal cues of
Mm,
when I could say something.
Yeah.
So I'm always afraid of, talking on top of somebody else or waiting and waiting and waiting to say something, and then the topic goes on. And that's a technology issue. It's
mm,
gotten much better now that we're all Zooming because
mm.
we all face that and we're all, you know, somewhat more understanding of almost raising our hand to speak like you're in class.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do either or both of you have a favorite church lab moment?
I think it's the same for both of us.
Yeah. This may not count, but my favorite has to be, I'll try to think of one internal if I can, but my favorite is just that just one time last year, we went in person and I could
Oh.
actually hug these people. I could actually people
Right.
and be surprised with how different some of them were up front, in person than I expected them to be over the internet. And that was by far my
Yeah,
favorite time.
it was, it was
Sure.
a great time to be able to sit and chat with them in person, live.
Yeah. Yeah. That it is an interesting phenomena to be friends with a group of people that you see maybe only once every few months or every few years. And uh, it um, it is special and it is different to be in the presence of these people that we meet with regularly, but only ever like this. Why why do you think that TCL is important? What about it makes it special?
Well, for me, and I don't mean any offense to the structured religions,
Hmm.
I just had no connection to the repetition of the same prayers week after week and the rituals that you repeated over and over again. when I did attend religious services of any kind, the only part that I found interesting was the sermon. And in some cases, in the places where I attended, sometimes the sermons were also open up to discussions and dialogue. So it wasn't just a lecture. And that format of being able to hear new ideas and even sometimes share ideas amongst the congregation was the interesting part. So when I finally found a vehicle where I could participate in that kind of stimulation and not have to be involved with an hour of ritual every week, it suited where I was going with my own journey.
That's awesome. Thank you. Dad?
It gives me an opportunity to think about topics I'd rather not think about. I just, I'm not really, it doesn't directly affect me 100% right now. So I'd rather not think about fill in the blank, whichever topic Carrie's come up with. Any of them, all of them, they're all been wonderful. So it's giving me that opportunity, but also because I want to participate, it's made me think about them and not just off the cuff sit there, which I'm more experienced with doing, just talking about it. It makes me actually have to think a little bit and plan what I want to bring up or what I want to discuss. Because she does give, it's almost a question. She gives us a list of questions. We don't get to, a third of them usually, but you want to respond to those questions or answer those questions and think about those questions. The other part of dialogue that I think is really important is similar to what Donna was saying at services where we would have the sermon and then a discussion afterwards. Even when we weren't participating in, or I wasn't participating in the discussion afterwards, you feel judged. It felt very judgmental that we had these really smart people there or these really egotistical people that just wanted to hear themselves speak. And you felt itsy bitsy teeny weeny that you're not going to open your mouth because you don't want to embarrass yourself in front of these people or have them put you down.
But you're saying or implying at least that dialogue never
Oh,
does
dialogue
that.
never does that. No, never does that.
Do you or would you, why would you encourage other people to get involved with Church Lab?
It just encourages personal growth. Whether it's from my point of view where I'm saying I'm still trying to figure out my spirituality and how all this fits together, or whether it's just like my husband who says it forces me to think of these emotional issues like life after death and forgiveness that I just don't pay much attention to in my day-to-day life. It's life changing.
Pretty much what she said. It gives you or requires you to at least listen to alternative points of view and alternative perspectives, even if you don't locally participate. You could just sit at a session the entire time and participate almost internally by ruminating on everything that's happening without ever saying a word.
Yeah, I never get the impression that anybody is just biding their time during a dialogue. Whether you're speaking or not, you can tell everyone is completely engaged.
I wasn't sure where you were headed, whether it was engagement or whether it was biding their time during dialogue to like pounce on a topic or something. Yeah.
You get involved in a regular religious service or even a lecture in a lecture hall or
a meeting.
Or even music,
Mhm.
when you're listening, you can just see something zone out, just completely gone, not part of it, but just sitting there because they feel they should or whatever. And
Mhm.
no, that's never the case with anyone in Zoom. And not in, I mean,
The
when we're seeing
dialogue.
them by Zoom or when we're seeing them in the room in person, it's the dialogue is always extremely stimulating to everyone that's involved.
That I think covers what the ground that we're here to cover today. So thank you both for taking a little bit of time out of the afternoon here to do a quick recording. And I'll see you, if not before, since of course, as we went over, you're my parents. I'll see you at the next dialogue.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.